There are lots of ways to make a decision. You could flip a coin. You could follow your heart. Or you could just make a choice at random and hope for the best. That's probably okay for small decisions, but what about more important ones? It's better to think carefully about your options and consider the many paths you could take. With the right tools, you can learn to do this objectively, so you can make decisions that you feel good about. Here are some strategies that can help. The first step to making any decision is simple. Identify the problem. As an example, say you're trying to choose between two different apartments. One is cheaper, but farther away from work. The other is closer and nicer, but much more expensive. Which one would you choose? Depending on what you value, you probably have some idea. This initial response, the one tied to your instincts and emotions, is perfectly valid. However, you should also try to look at your options rationally. Start by comparing them. There are several ways to do this. For example, you could list all the factors that you're considering, things like price, location, and other amenities, then choose the one thing that's most important to you. With that in mind, which option comes out on top? You could go one step further and create a point system. Take that same list and turn it into a scorecard for each option. In this example, that means apartment 1 would score high on affordable rent, let's say a 10, but much lower on location. Apartment 2 would score about the opposite. Keep going down the list until you've scored every item, being as objective as you can. Then add up the totals, and maybe you have a winner. Looking at it another way, you could evaluate one option at a time with a list of pros and cons. It sounds simple, but sometimes it helps to write these things down. This time, it's okay to be subjective. Certain factors can and should carry more weight than others. It's how you feel about them that counts, so be honest about what these things mean to you. Imagining possible outcomes might give you some perspective on the decision. Say you're thinking about adopting a dog. What do you think the consequences might be in a month? In a year? How about several years from now? Making decisions can be a roller coaster ride, especially when there are long-term consequences to think about. We can't see into the future, but we can try to be prepared. At this point, it's normal to feel overwhelmed, even stuck. With so much to consider, how do you know you're making the right choice? There are 2 more techniques that can help you fire up your brain and trick it into thinking differently. Try this one, the 2-minute diversion. Distract yourself with a 2-minute activity that you find moderately difficult. Maybe you like playing mobile games or solving math problems for fun. Whatever works for you. Believe it or not, you'll continue to process the decision unconsciously, according to brain imaging research by Carnegie Mellon University. This brief window of time helps you internalize important details, so you can make better, more insightful decisions. Sometimes it helps to step outside yourself and pretend you're helping someone else. Studies show we're able to think more objectively in third person. That's why it's easier to give advice than it is to receive it. If a friend or family member was struggling with the same decision, what questions would you ask them? What compromises would you suggest? Really think about it. Adopting a different point of view might help you see the situation in a whole new way. Making decisions isn't like taking a test. There are no right or wrong answers per se, it just depends on the situation. Focus on taking the time to think about your options and what you hope to achieve, so you can feel confident about the choices you make. It's not as easy as flipping a coin, but it's worth the extra effort. GCF Global, creating opportunities for a better life.